Hello friends, this is Cara-Renee with B.Reborn Art and Healing, coming to you with another video on how to do some mixed media paper. So in the last video we used some vintage book music pages, and we used clear gesso on the top, and then we used white gesso to push back some of the print, especially around the edges. We wanted to be able to still see the music pages, but it created a beautiful effect. And then we came in with some acrylic inks and did some colorizing in addition to that, and it's gorgeous. So I'll be sure to link that video in the description box so you can check it out. It will also be over on my blog at B.Rebornart.com. So today I thought I would do something a little bit different. I wanted to try the same process basically of preparing the surfaces with some clear gesso on both sides, and then coming in with some embossing powder, so to do some embossing using some stamps, and also using some other mediums. So what I have here are Lindy's Magicals. I don't know if you guys have ever seen these or worked with these, but they are absolutely phenomenal. So we're going to try these as our secondary medium instead of the acrylic inks that I have used in the past. So I'm just going to set these aside so they are not in my way. I have limited space because I'm already spread out all over on that side with all my papers. So I did already do the first step, which is to apply the clear gesso to both sides of each of the papers. So I'm going to move this stuff as well so that you guys can see what papers I chose. You can use any papers. I did choose a little bit of variety. If you're doing it, the supplies that I just had on screen, sorry about the focus, are what you're going to need if you're going to follow along, and you're also going to need a heat tool. You can see how well used and loved mine is, and that I did a lot of mixed media. Used to do more mixed media than anything else. Just going to set that on my shelf down here so that it's not in my way. So I selected a digital. This is from my Porch Prints, and I already did gesso it. I don't think I gessoed this side. Maybe we won't do that side because that's already double printed, so that should be fine. I missed this one doing the other side. So I thought it would be cool to try it with a pattern paper as well and see what kind of results we get. So we have that one. I also pulled a vintage paper from an old book that I have. It's called Stories and Folk Tales. So we have that because I thought I could show you how you could do this and then cut this and make a pocket out of it, or a tag or whatever. So and then this is a vintage music page. This is from a German music book. So again, I have applied clear gesso to both sides. And then this is another digital, a little bit of more of a pushed back, vintagey. This is from some kind of a, I don't even know the kit I got this from. This is actually in my scrap box because, as I've mentioned in other videos, oftentimes if something gets out of place in my studio and I don't want to take the time, because sometimes I'm lazy, to put it back where it goes, I just throw it in the scrap pile because it's going to get used some way, right? And then I also, this is from a vintage music book that I purchased recently, and I did already gesso both sides again with clear gesso. It is still a little bit wet. That's okay because we're going to do some things together. So I've got one of those, actually three of these in total. So, and these are, again, have both been gessoed. So I am using the originals for this demonstration because I love using the actual pages because, like, I mean, I know some things are precious and I usually will scan them, and I did scan these, but I want to use what I have. Like, what good does it do to have it in your stash if you're not going to use it? I don't ever intend to sell digitals that I've collected and copyright free kinds of things. So I'm just using them because it's fun. So I'm going to go ahead and set some of these aside so that we have a little bit of room to work. And I did notice, just as I'm looking at this paper, see how we've got some discoloration in here, and that's the ink from my inkjet printer kind of running and stuff, which is okay. It doesn't matter. So let's go ahead and start with these 3 on here. I do already have my coffee dyeing mixture out in the kitchen, kind of just sitting waiting for us to get to that point. So my camera view, so that when I look at my monitor, everything is still backwards. I have not figured out how to fix that. So I tend to move things over this way and then realize when I look at the screen it's off screen. So let's see, just trying to get these all in frame so I don't have to shift them too much to work with them. So that seems to be better. I'm not gonna, they're big. I mean, these measure easily 12 inches tall or 11 and a half or whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and get my gesso out because I want to do that same process. I want to push all this back. So I'm going to proceed with the video, and I'm not going to do a lot of talking. I will pipe in from time to time, or I'll do a voiceover because this is going to be a lengthy video, and I want to be able to control the length of it by editing and doing a voiceover. So I've got my gesso. So I'm going to start with using some gesso and my palette knife to scrape on some of this white gesso on all 3 of those pages. I do switch over to my rubber spatula here in a moment because we've got a lot of landscape here to cover, and so I just wanted it to go a little bit quicker. So there we go. Just giving, not putting it everywhere. I want to just push back some of that those music notes and the dark bits of that background with the gesso. So just to kind of push it back, we still want to be able to see that it's a music page, but don't want it to be quite as bold as it is right here. And again, these did also have a coat of clear gesso prior to the white gesso. So you would not necessarily have to use white gesso here if you wanted to have all of that print be visible and show. So because I do want some of the music notes to show as well as the title where I can. So I believe I go in and wiped that off, the title of that song there here in a moment. And because there's already a coat of clear gesso on the surface, I'm able to do that without kind of tearing the paper there, because we've already created a barrier between the white gesso and the paper itself. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the other pieces, doing the same process. Looks like my gesso needed to be filled up. I apologize, guys. This might be a little disjointed. It's been a few hours. It's probably been 5 hours or so since I recorded. And with my old brain, that means I don't remember what I was doing sequentially here. So I hope that you'll bear with me and it won't be too distracting for you guys. So again, doing the same process there, just pushing back some of that print, as well as the gesso creates some texture on the surface, which you'll see in the pictures at the end. Absolutely gorgeous texture created just by the gesso. So if you could only choose gesso and some kind of a color like a raw umber color, as I mentioned before, the raw umber fluid acrylic, or the raw umber acrylic ink would be a great place to start. So just moving those to the side so we can go ahead and work on these papers. I realized when I was off camera letting the other pages dry that I had forgotten to do this one, so catching that really quick. I want to leave that script showing as much as I can. In the end product, it does show for the most part. So we do lose a lot of the background in these pages with the other steps that are coming up. And I was fishing around in my cabinet for my crackle paint there, my Deco Art crackle paint, and I came across this golden acrylic mica flakes. So it's kind of a paste, and so we're going to use it to add some gold flecks to both of these pages. And it turned out amazing, so beautiful. So I'm just putting it here and there. I am having it land on some of the the gesso that is still somewhat tacky so that it would have something to adhere to. And there I was just pointing out that I really enjoy the vintage papers that have personal notes and markings and things like that. That particular music page has red lines that go down the scales there. Maybe it was a teacher help. I don't know. Like maybe she did it for a student to help them see where they were at on the line. I'm not sure, but I think it's really cool. So I wanted that to show a little bit. I don't know if that really shows in the end product, but again, we know it's there. And then coming in with my favorite medium, which is the Deco Art Crackle Paint. And if you've watched any of my videos, you've probably seen me use it before. I will also link the other mixed media paper video that I did not very long ago. I'll link it in the video description and over on the blog in my supply list so that you guys can check that out if you want to see the other part. So because on this video I did not show you actually using acrylic inks as I ended up doing in the end. I did that off camera, but you'll be able to see that in the photos at the end of the video. Just capping that up real quick so that we can move on. Do make sure that this is pretty well dried. Nothing is completely dry for days. With this process, it takes days and days and days for these papers to completely dry because the paper just absorbs all that moisture. So I'm just pulling those up. I'm going to show you a little bit of a close-up here so that you can see those mica flakes as well as the crackle that has not yet really cracked. I think that comes up later on. Again, really tricky to do a voiceover later, not immediate when it's not immediately after actually doing the video. So, but this is just me being me, just got to be authentic and transparent and honest. So, and then this is just the other one. This one is not quite as bold as the other one. I think it's a little bit lighter on those mediums, which I think is just equally beautiful. Now I'm going to come back in with this. Oh, I was going to show you here that when I did the other side of that paper, I actually, it pulled up the top layer of the paper. It stuck to the plastic bag that I had it on. Over to the left of me is where I put these wet items. And so I was just showing you that paper pulled away, but in the end it creates a lot of great texture, which is really kind of that happy accident that we like to have with when we're doing mixed media, especially. I know we have happy accidents in junk journaling as well, but mixed media is kind of the playground for that kind of thing, the happy accidents. So just moving things into frame here so that you can see what I'm going to do now. So these are the pieces that we're going to be actually doing the stenciling with the modeling paste / texture paste. They are essentially the same thing. I realized that I had forgotten to grab any stencils to do it, so we do definitely have to have stencils to move on here. This is my binder of Sean Petit stencils. I used to be on her creative team for a year, several years ago. And she's got a beautiful line of stencils. So I'm looking in here for some bolder kind of designs because we're filling some big spaces with texture. So I picked that large rose one and then that flourish kind of looking one. It's in her Paris line. So, and then I was pointing to the wings because I use those in a lot of projects. And then that's the third stencil that I chose. And then we're going to go ahead and use my Crafters Workshop modeling paste. So I'm out of my preferred modeling paste, so I am just using what I have. I have never used this. I've used the Crafters Workshop materials a lot, but not their modeling paste. And so I was wondering if it was going to be as thick as I've experienced with the ones that I favor, and it is definitely thick, really nice consistency. So I'm going to be stenciling just randomly around the page. I do turn it that direction because that's how the page would be folded to go into signature. These will be used in a journal coming up, I'm hoping. We'll see how that goes. So just, again, just moving around the page. I will do some on the left-hand side here in a minute. We'll lift the stencil. But you do want to make sure when you're using modeling paste or texture paste that you wipe that palette knife off when you're done getting the material on there, and then scrape it so that you get all the excess off the top, because when you pull that stencil up, it's going to pull up the texture paste and create peaks in your design, which sometimes are really messy and kind of too much. So that's why I kind of scrape it off as much as I can to get rid of any of the excess. So just doing the last piece here. This page turned out really beautiful as well. And there will be close-up photos at the end of the video, as well as over on my blog. There we go, just pulling that up really slowly, because then you can have a little bit of control over how much of that modeling paste is pulled up with the stencil. So here, just holding that up so you can see a close-up. This one we're going to put in the coffee dye bath, because I think it's going to be really beautiful to go into the cracks and the open spaces around those roses. And it was stunning, beautiful, really beautiful end product. And I don't care about those little bits that are kind of in excess to the actual design, the little hangover bits. My English, my speaking is clearly impaired today. And we're coming in with that second stencil and just going to move around again in similar fashion to the other page. But this is that printable from my Porch Prints that's got a lot of pink in the background, which does end up showing up in the end product for this page. And I just telling you, I am a little distracted. My grandkids just got here about an hour ago. And but I decided, in order for me to focus on them and really enter into the joy of being with them and playing games and watching movies, I thought I'd just come in here while Papa has them outside exploring and get this voiceover done, so that I can just kind of tuck this one away and know that we're all good to go. So, yeah. And if you want to check out Sean's stencils, I will have them linked, the specific stencils linked in the supply list. But if you want to check out her as an artist, she's at seanpetite.com. She's a mixed media artist, an amazing woman, a very inspirational artist. She does a Sunday's inspiration every week. Actually, I was doing my Sunday's Art of Truth before I joined her creative team, which was kind of really cool. And so she does her projects, and then she talks about it at the end. She talks about the inspiration just on the video, and I write about my inspiration over on my blog. So, but same kind of feel in terms of the depth and the life kinds of things that we're talking about. She does the same kind of thing, has beautiful artwork and stencils and stuff. So there's just a close-up of that texture with that stencil. Absolutely gorgeous. And then on this one, I'm going to use this third stencil, and I apologize, guys, I don't have them in front of me, so I don't know the name just to tell you here. But I'm going to put that design on either end of that page. And again, I turned the paper so that it was in the orientation that it would be used in the journal. And this one is actually, this page is the one that we did the crackle paint. So it's got clear gesso, white gesso, crackle paint, and the mica flakes, and now it's got the texture paste on top. And so there's just a close-up, sort of. I wish I'd brought that a little closer for you, but you'll be able to see this gorgeous design in the end photos. It was stunning. I couldn't have planned it better. And I love it when that happens, like when you just kind of step out and do something that you've never done. I've never done this before, on camera or off camera. I have not done this exact process. So I was thrilled with the results. It was very time consuming. The video was about an hour and 40 minutes in real time. And so there's a lot of drying time, there's a lot of steps and that kind of thing, but it was worth the work and the time. So there you can see the crackle in that page. So that has all completely dried so that we can see the cracks as they're going to be. And then the gold mica flakes show up in the end product too, just really beautifully. I'm going to set that aside so that we can go ahead and move on to the smaller pieces. So these are the ones that I had talked about, I believe, in the beginning, about wanting to do a technique doing some embossing, using some stamps some clear embossing ink, and some clear embossing powder. And so I've got all of my supplies here. I've got my little tray that makes it easy to kind of pour that powder back into my container. And here I pulled out, these are my Lindy's Magicals, and they are a powder, a pigment powder. They are water reactive, so you do want to keep that in mind, and I'm keeping that in mind as I'm planning this out, as I'm working through it rather. I didn't plan anything really, but we can't put another medium on top of this because the Magicals are water reactive, so they are not permanent. And so I'm keeping that in mind as I'm selecting my colors, as well as knowing right at this point that as soon as I put those Magicals on, I can no longer add anything else to the page. So I was good with that. So I picked a Yellow Rose of Texas, and then the other one is some kind of a peacock color. But again, those will be linked in the supply list over on my blog. These are some of the stamps that I chose. Just some flourish kinds of stuff. Some looks like coffee stained stamps, and then some script. So we're going to go ahead and start with the big page. And the large clear ink pad that I picked, in retrospect, I should not have used. It was not, it felt wet to the touch, but did not have enough ink. And so this page did not really have any embossing that showed up. So I do switch after this page and get another smaller ink pad with the clear ink and did the other two pieces with it, and we've got a little bit more success there. But as I've mentioned in other videos, not everything that we try works out, and this was one of those that just didn't. Again, it felt damp to my touch, but it clearly does not have enough ink in it. So I will be rectifying that. I do have a bottle, a re-inker for that, so I will take care of it later. But I don't know either if this was just a resistance from the mediums that were underneath, because again, I have not ever done embossing over gesso, so it could be any number of things that caused this to not work out quite as I had hoped. But the page turned out beautifully with what I ended up doing with it anyway, so there's never any real loss in it, in my opinion. It's all exploration, and we learn, and we figure out what works and what doesn't work, and make changes where we need to. So here I'm just going to go ahead and pour that on. It takes almost the whole container because it's really quite a large piece of paper. That's a letter size, I believe, that 8.5 by 11. So it's going to make a beautiful journal page though. Just so much powder on my desk, and that stuff just goes on and on and on forever. Cleanup after this project was a real treat because I had used some acrylic ink in blue over kind of off to my left, and I got ink splatters all over my white shelf and stuff, but it all comes off. But boy, it was messy. So when you do heat embossing, you do want to let the gun heat up a little bit and then apply it to the paper, because otherwise you're going to warp the paper. So I am searching there. I thought for a moment I could see some of the script, but there's nothing on it, and I'm brushing it away because it feels like it's just loose powder. So that means to me that the ink was probably not wet enough. But again, no loss there at all, just playing. And so there I'm feeling and just like realizing, oh, that pad probably just didn't have enough ink. That's why it didn't really work. So I'm going to grab a small one. I do have to step out of the room to get that. So that's the delay that you're experiencing here. And this is like my 4th attempt to do the voiceover because the video was so long, and trying to cut it and splice it to leave my voice in, and it just was too much. So I started over several times. So it did take me a bit, but it was worth the time. And I did pull out my VersaFine black as well. Thought I would do some embossing in black. Did not end up doing that. I might do that in another video and just maybe do black accent for some texture in the next project. But we will see what comes. And I've got this little like swirly flourish kind of stamp that I'm going to use on this music page. And this again is that German page that I showed you at the beginning. It's a page from a vintage book in my stash. And I could already tell when I was doing this that the ink was much wetter and we were going to get some impression, even though when I was doing other things with it, it was like, oh, I just don't really see it. I don't really see the embossing, but I can see some in the final product. So it may be that I should have done the embossing first on the paper before I did any gesso or anything else, because then it would have probably taken a little bit better, but it is okay. And then here I'm using that coffee stain stamp, which I have no idea, but the it didn't show up. I have no idea why. Like, I can't see it on that page at all. So kind of weird, but you know, we just go with it. It's all good. And then there's this little, like, I don't know what they call those little, it's like a little flourish. I don't know what they call it, but, and I'm sorry that I didn't slow down enough for you to see that. But just putting it here and there, just because, again, I'm experimenting at this point. I'm thinking these 2 pages are really not going to do much. So I was just kind of kept applying some stuff just to see what we would end up with, knowing that it wasn't going to be exactly what I had expected or was going for. And that's all right. The paper was hard to work with because it's so thin. It's so fragile, but each of these elements does add some stability to the older pages, which was the goal of the first mixed media video that I did, where I did the paper the first time. Was I had vintage music pages that were just too fragile to use in any other way. So by using the gesso, you build up the base of that paper and it makes it a little bit more stable to be used in journals without tearing and that kind of thing. So they're just using my heat tool to go ahead and get that embossing to work. Again, not the results I was looking for. We do get a little bit of that embossing when we start applying some other products, like when we use the magicals on those 2 sheets. We can see it, and I do that on camera for you here in a bit. Just moving that back out so that you guys can see a broader area here. This is the magical the color is called Yellow Rose of Texas. It's my favorite color in the magicals line, and these are from Lindy's, Lindy's.com, I believe. But again, they will be linked in the supply list. I did need to search for my bottle because I threw my Ranger one away, so that was the one I always go for, but it doesn't work, and it's just a waste of money, sadly. But I have the larger squirt bottle here that I just needed to locate. So just applying that, I sprayed it with some water, and then I turned it over so that we could get some colorizing on the other side. There wasn't a whole lot of moisture and color on the surface of the table to really grab that, but we did get a little bit of color on the back. And now I will come in right away with the other color, the peacock, and just get that on there. I can't remember if I did the music page at the same time or not. I think here I was talking about the nature of this product, in that it is a water soluble medium, so it is not permanent. So I had to really be thinking about that as I was moving through the project to make sure I wasn't going to need to put something on top of it, because it would not. It would just move that pigment around, and we would not have any permanence at all. So there's I think it was called something sapphire, actually. And so just kind of moving that around a little bit to get that color on different parts of the page. It turned out a lot better in the end than it looks here, but often that happens. Things need to dry and set, and then you need to sometimes walk away and come back, and then it looks different. So you can't really tell there, but there's a shimmer to the magicals that is hard to capture on camera. I'm hoping that the close-up photos will show a little bit more. On this one, I'm just going in with that sapphire color by itself, I believe. I can't remember if I added yellow a little bit later on. Again, that was too many hours ago for my old brain, but we will see together, won't we? Surprise, surprise! And there we can see, I can see now as I'm doing the voiceover that I can see that flourish in the lower left-hand corner. So just moving that off. I didn't want to affect the color there too much, so I just moved it so it can dry on its own. And then just added a little bit more. I think this was the yellow here. Or no, that's more blue. I thought I had come in with more yellow, but maybe not. So now we're at the coffee dyeing bath here. So I'm going to do this on camera for you. I realized that my coffee was really, really light. I wish I had gone a little bit darker with it because I went light. I did need to come in with some other mediums, which I did off camera. I did come in with some of my acrylic in transparent raw umber and also in, I believe, marine blue from Daler and Rowney. But again, those will also be linked. So we're going to go ahead and coffee dye each of these. I don't leave it in the water for very long. I'm just looking for a quick dip here. And so we'll just move through each of those together here, and then off camera when I'm done here, you'll see me come back to the post part of having applied the acrylic inks to each of these pages. Not to the ones that we use the magicals on, but to all the other papers. So, and I was kind of motioning there with my talking hands that I had created my coffee dye hours, probably 2 hours before we get to this point, almost 2 hours. So it was cold, which was a benefit in this case because a hot coffee dye or warm coffee dye would have probably loosened up some of those mediums and we would not have gotten the same result as we got. So that was a good choice to have that coffee be very cold versus warm or hot. So. Oh, and then right there, all of a sudden my monitor started playing like a screensaver or whatever, and I thought the video had stopped, but we had been recording for so long that my computer was trying to go to sleep. Isn't that crazy? I've never done a video this long apparently with the new equipment, so that was kind of weird. So here is that my Porch Prints digital, and the back of this one actually turned out prettier than the front. Oh my gosh, it was so cool. So as you can see there's it's really light. The coffee dye is really light, and I do wish that I had gone darker, but don't have a lot of experience with coffee dyeing, so it was an experiment and with using a little bit less of the instant coffee. So next time I would definitely go darker. And there I'm just showing you where that paper had also pulled off the top layer, and it creates a beautiful texture. So each of these papers I'm going to be holding up for you so that you can see what they look like in the end. So I used an acrylic ink in marine blue and the transparent raw umber, but because they were wet, they mixed, and so it muted down the blue into a really pretty color. I was really happy with it. But look at all that texture, the crackle, it just looks like, and you can see that the gold, the texture from the gold flakes, not necessarily the gold. The gold didn't show up on one of these pages as much as the other for some reason, I'm not sure, and then that's the back of that page, just really a lot mellower. I didn't focus on the back sides of each of these. And here is the second one, again holding it up. This is that one that was just a digital that was pretty neutral, had that script in the middle. And this is the one we embossed on that we didn't really get a great result, or any result for that matter. I don't think we got any result. I kind of examined it too off camera, but I didn't see much going on. But I liked that, and I love that blue. It's one of my favorite colors to put together with the brown. So, and here is the second page of that one that we did all of the layers with the modeling paste, the gessos, and the mica flakes and the crackle paint. Look at that. So gorgeous. Like, I could not plan it better. The results of this are just so phenomenal. And then there's the back of that one again, pretty neutral, not a lot going on the back. And this one This is the one that we did the stenciling and the modeling paste with the roses. And then that part that I was just pointing to is where that paper had torn off the top layer, and it just created a really beautiful, different kind of feel to that part of the page that, again, I couldn't have planned for. It's just amazing. And on this, I was thinking that I could come in with, you know, like some gold or something and go across that texture and really have that, those roses really stand out. And I'm not sure why I was picking that page up again. I don't know. It was too long ago. And then this is the one where we used that that flourish kind of stencil, and I can't remember what the paper looked like underneath. I apologize, guys. That might have been a music page too, but again, I just love it. I think it's just gorgeous. I love how the blue really concentrated there and is a little bit lighter in other areas. And that's just the marine blue and that transparent raw umber, and some of it mixing, creating a little bit of a duller kind of a brownish green, and then other areas really able to keep that vibrant blue color, which is gorgeous. And then here is the one, that's the back of one of the pages, which turned out absolutely gorgeous, better than the front. Like, I don't even know. Oh, that's the back of the rose one. The one where we did the stenciling with the rose stencil. It's just incredible. Gorgeous. And then that's the back of one of the other pages. But you'll see, I don't remember if I took photos of the backs or not. I might have to go back and do that. I can't remember. And just showing you the back of that one as well. My apologies for my jibber jabbering. I always, when I'm doing it, it sounds terrible, and then often when I listen back, it's not as bad as it feels. So again, I'm a little bit off. I've got a lot of emotional things going on right now that I'm kind of processing in one side of my brain while I'm creating, so it's just one of those things. And then there's where you can see that embossing in that lower left hand corner. That paper is still very fragile. It's still quite damp, and so I'm hoping that as it dries it gets a little bit more stable. I could always come back over that maybe with some clear gesso. It might move some of that color around a little bit because, again, it's not permanent, but it'll be fine no matter what happens. So we are coming to the end, you guys. I hope that you found the video helpful. I hope that you found it not too confusing with all of the cutting and pasting and all of that stuff. But I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you'll give it a try. Art is about playing, whether we feel like we failed or not. If we get the results that we wanted, it doesn't matter. Play is the most important part. So I hope that you guys will have a go at it. And now I'm going to go and wash my hands. Thanks, bye.